Good morning, and for those of you on the East Coast, good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's Looking Forward with Workday webinar, the fourth installment of this year's Looking Forward with Workday Prism Analytics series. Today's customer spotlight features Denny's, a full platform Workday customer, and I'm excited to have them share their story. Denny's is using Prism Analytics in a variety of ways to provide insights and decision support to a cross-functional group of stakeholders. You'll hear all about that today, as well as their motivations for going all in on Workday for reporting and analytics, including the value they've been able to realize in just a short period of time. Before we begin, here's a quick run-through of today's agenda. We'll begin with a quick overview of Workday Prism Analytics for those of you who might not be entirely familiar with Prism today. I'll then hand it over to our special guests from Denny's to hear about their Prism Analytics journey and future aspirations. Really excited to have them speak and appreciate their willingness to participate. Following the presentation from Denny's, one of our Workday subject matter experts will demo a variety of analytics use cases, showcasing the power of Workday Prism Analytics, especially for hospitality companies. We'll close with a dedicated Q&A to answer any questions submitted during the presentation via the Q&A widget. But some housekeeping before we get started. At the bottom of the screen is a gray bar with multiple application widgets you can use. The Help widget, here you will find resources and information for common technical issues you may experience with the webcast. The Slides widget, here you can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner. The Media Player, this is where audio and any screen share that may take place during today's session will come through. The Q&A widget, and this is most important, so if you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget, the speech bubble with the question mark in the middle. We will try to answer these questions during the webcast, either via chat or live at the end. But if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know that we do capture all questions and we'll make sure to respond. There's a resource list where you can find additional materials related to Workday Prism Analytics available in the resource list widget. We encourage you to download any resources or links that you may find useful. We've also included a link to register for upcoming dates of the Looking Forward with Workday webinar series. And lastly, this webinar will be recorded and an on-demand version of the webcast will be available approximately one day after the webcast and can be accessed using the same audience link that was sent to you earlier. My name is Will Roger, and I am a product marketing manager on the analytics team here at Workday. At Workday, our vision is to provide finance, HR, and business leaders with what we like to call our power of one, a single platform where you can plan, execute, and analyze all 100% in the cloud. What our customers have found is that Workday complements, extends, and provides a better mechanism to capitalize on an enterprise data strategy. We're able to do that because, if you think about it, the data gravity for financial and employee information already resides within Workday as the system of record. But our customers aren't just limited to their financial and HR transactions in Workday. Workday Prism Analytics enables them to integrate any data source, such as historical data from a legacy system or high-volume operational data. For example, that could be policy and claims data for an insurance company. For healthcare companies, that could be clinical data. For hospitality companies like Denny's, that could be data from their point-of-sale system. With Prism Analytics, our customers have the ability to see the full spectrum of workforce, financial, and operational insights and capture the value of their most important data, all within Workday. Workday Prism Analytics is built to handle large volumes of data in a Hadoop columnar structure, including structured and unstructured data that traditional transaction systems just weren't meant to handle. 100% in the cloud and 100% integrated with Workday. At a fundamental level, Prism Analytics enables you to connect and blend your transactional and high-volume external operational data, manage it, prepare it, govern it, trace it, and ultimately publish it to be used in financial, HR, and operational reporting and analysis. Increasingly, we will also be layering in machine learning capabilities and augmented analytics thanks to our acquisition of Stories BI. And we are well underway in integrating with adaptive insights so that you can leverage Prism data in your plans and use drag and drop discovery boards to analyze plan data alongside real-time transactions. What all of this ultimately boils down to is that Workday Prism Analytics is a complete self-service end-to-end analytics platform, and we are investing in Prism to make it the data hub for financial and HR analytics and reporting. So what makes Workday Prism Analytics different? Security with Prism Analytics is just like in Workday. Based off of who you are and where you are in the system, dictates what you can see and do. If there is a change in your role or organization, those security updates are automatically applied across all of Workday, including analytics. And unlike alternative solutions, you are able to automatically apply your existing security model to the third-party data you are blending and analyzing. Distribution with Prism Analytics is just like in Workday. With Workday, you already have a best-in-class distribution solution. You can leverage Workday Prism Analytics on a browser or any mobile device. And if your role or organization changes, once again, the system is automatically updated, adjusting what is distributed to you. Experience with Prism Analytics is also just like in Workday. You can take advantage of the existing platform that you're already driving your team to for transactions and for which they are familiar. And unlike alternative analytic solutions, this experience allows you to take action on your blended data, be it a self-service transaction, organization change, or a business process. Prism Analytics is the fastest growing product in the history of Workday. We now have over 225 customers representing all industries, large and medium enterprise, US-based and global, and some of the customers you can see represented here. But when we dig into what our customers are using Prism Analytics for, their use cases typically fall into three categories. Operational insights is the first. This includes data from third-party, industry, or homegrown applications for company-specific decision support for topics as wide-ranging as capacity planning to sales performance to profitability analysis by product or customer. Next, extended ecosystem is a use case that involves pulling in all the data from subsidiary, contract labor, or third-party finance and HR applications, essentially creating a single view of workforce and financial performance. Lastly, our history use case enables organizations to leverage data from legacy applications in greater volumes, faster and cheaper, especially for reporting and analytics use cases. Now with that, I'd like to introduce our first guest from Denny's, Jim Batchelor-Smith, Senior IT Director, Enterprise Business Relationship. Jim?
Thanks, Will. Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to start, I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then I'll tell you a little bit about Denny's. As Will said, my name is Jim Batchelor-Smith, and I've been with Denny's for a little over 36 years now, serving in various IT, HR, and operations roles. I am currently the Senior IT Director of Enterprise Business Relationship, assisting with the business in identifying strategic IT initiatives and ensuring IT delivers on those expectations. Denny's Corporation is the franchisor and operator of one of America's largest franchised full-service restaurant chains with just over 1,700 franchised, licensed, and company restaurants around the world, including 132 restaurants in Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico, New Zealand, the Philippines, Honduras, Costa Rica, the United Arab Emirates, Guam, the United Kingdom, El Salvador, Guatemala, and one of my favorites, Aruba. One of my key responsibilities is the Workday support team. Currently, that team consists of 7 architects, software engineers, and business analysts, all supporting various business areas and all the downstream systems that Workday feeds. As stated on the slide, our mission is to gather and transform data from different systems or sources and provide insights to the business with a focus on automation. Denny's, like other companies, is ever evolving to keep up with the changing customer expectation. Technology is becoming a differentiator, setting brands apart. There's been a huge expansion of non-traditional services such as online ordering, easy carryout options, and almost required home delivery options to compete in today's market. A need for operational efficiency coupled with strategic data analysis in regards to increasing labor and food cost pressures require a robust reporting platform. Brands need to be more flexible and constantly in pursuit of efficiency to maintain a steady profit margin and value for their shareholders. A few years ago, we set out to achieve some efficiencies by replacing our legacy ERP system with Workday to take advantage of the power of one, to consolidate as many systems and processes as possible, therefore reducing support requirements. I'm happy to say not only did we achieve our goals, but we continue to streamline our work and consistently find new opportunities to integrate functionality. The configurable nature of Workday gives us the flexibility to quickly deliver changes for the regulatory compliance of HR and payroll while delivering more complex features such as financial planning models that take a little longer to configure because of all the data elements required for accurate forecasting. Our Workday implementation journey has been more like a movement, gaining momentum and increased excitement over the possibilities as we implement each set of functionality. We spent most of 2015 preparing for HCM and quickly moved on to other modules. On the slide, we forgot to list the most recent implementation of our financial planning module, which is Workday's Adaptive Insights. We will complete our annual 2020 planning process next month in the tool for the very first time. So before Workday, some of our larger systems that are listed here required heavy support, and we never seemed to be able to keep up, especially when it came to version control. We were one of those companies that only upgraded when we received the letter from the support or that the support of our current version was getting ready to end. Customer changes were backlogged. Many of our systems required same basic core data for reporting. However, they were never in sync, causing discrepancies in reporting, which caused a lack of trust in the systems and the data we produced. So why Workday Prism Analytics? Workday offered us one platform from HR to financials, GL to financial statements, planning and analysis. One version, cloud-based, always current and available in the office, in one of our restaurants, or on the go for our field leadership. One security model, automated approval processes, and same reports, but having different access. So we were able to share those reports across the enterprise. As I mentioned, Workday's Power of One solved many of those issues for us. One version of the data with built-in user-friendly access to reporting has decreased the demand from our customers. We were not on employee self-service until Workday, so the fact that everyone can see and update their own information has been a real time saver, and the information is certainly more accurate. One of the best features is that once a report is developed, it generally can be shared with anyone, and their security setting will only allow them to see what is appropriate. We worry a little less knowing information is protected regardless of who can run the report. With a major goal of efficiency and increased labor pressure, the need for doing more with less is more important than ever. We are constantly challenged by the business to find automation opportunities and provide more accurate data, entry, reporting, and accountability. Workday has provided that and continues to evolve our once heavy transactional staff to a more analytical, exception-based, forward-thinking staff. We continue to consolidate old system functionality into Workday, allowing us to remove many legacy systems along with their support costs. And those automatic upgrades, while it seems to roll around way too often, it forces us to stay current, and they are fairly simple to test and prepare for. By consolidating our support into a single group, which includes those business analysts, software engineers, and architects I spoke about earlier, changes are made quickly with deliberate expected outcomes and have an immediate effect on the enterprise. Prism has been a great addition to our enterprise, allowing us to combine data from different data sets as well as including outside data has and will continue to help evolve our business processes and decisions. A current Denny's initiative is to grow the footprint of our franchise base while allowing them to by allowing them to acquire key established corporate locations. Some of the use cases we will discuss shortly show the flexibility of Prism and how quickly we can configure new functionality. I'm now going to turn it over to Joy Hamrick, one of our senior software engineers and our in-house integrations and Prism guru, to tell you about the first two use cases, which used to be very labor intensive and honestly a little inaccurate for both of our compensation and payroll areas. Joy?
Hi, everyone. Like Jim said, I'm a software engineer, and I have also been at Denny's a long time. And my current role, I support integrations, VPs, and I help with system configuration, and I'm now one of the Prism admins. So the very first ever use case we did for Prism was our quarterly bonus for in-restaurant managers. All the information that we needed to calculate this bonus was already loaded from our POS system into Workday, but the sales, profits, expense, waste, all of the factors that were used to determine the financial performance of the restaurant all existed in the financial data sources. And then the manager or the people eligibility was in the HR data sources. We have 3 levels of in-restaurant managers that they all get different bonus percentage according to their job profile, and within that quarter they move between restaurant and restaurant, they promote, they demote, they go on leave, and that all affects their bonus payout. So with Prism, we were able to pull all the financial data, and then we were able to join it with the HR data, and thus we were able to map the operational metrics to the managers for when they were at a specific restaurant in a given role. Where bonus payments were actually calculated based on that eligibility, and we were able to prorate the bonus payout. The second advantage we found from having everything in Prism was financial planning, restaurant finance team, and our compensation departments all can see the big picture as the quarter goes along. They can plan for bonus payouts and track the targets versus the actuals, and everyone's looking at that same published data source. We made many of the fields drillable so that they actually can go into a restaurant and say, well, they were closed, but waste was a little bit high this quarter, and that's why that restaurant didn't make their bonus. So they actually can see the details while they're doing their analysis. And coming soon is a dashboard for the managers in the restaurant. So they can see how they're doing throughout the quarter. They can look and see if their sales are close to target, so maybe they'll have some incentive to try to push the things that they're close on, or control the waste or whatever they see. And they've never had that kind of visibility in the past, so they'll be able to see it as the quarter goes through. and the managers will only see their little slice of the pie because of the Workday security model. The next thing we built in Prism was actually because of that initiative that Jim talked about, where we're trying to sell some of our company stores to franchisees. We have approximately 8 states that require that employers, like Denny's, pay their terminated employees on their last day that they work. So checks have to be cut the morning without really knowing what hours those employees are going to work on their final day. So when Denny's sells that restaurant to the franchisee, the workers are considered terminated from Denny's. They're rehired by the franchisee on the same day. And this happens quite often right now. We have 6 this week, and there's 50 to 60 workers per restaurant, so it's quite a bit of employees. So what we do is take the actual hours they worked up until the last day, and then we take the schedule from the POS system, put it in Prism, and then determine what their final paycheck will be, and that's what we pay them on the last day. And then the second part of that process is what we call the true-up. And that's because when they actually close that last day, what they actually work compared to what the schedule said might be different. It seems to be different quite often. So we compare those two in Prism to see what their hours that they actually work compared to what we paid on the previous day. And if we underpaid them, then we issue a new check for that difference. And this reconciliation is always necessary because we track time in hundredths of an hour. This addresses a huge liability risk, helps us stay compliant with the state laws, and eliminates all the manual work our payroll department was having to do previously to determine what these checks were going to be. And those are our first 2 use cases. I think Harsh Desai, who is our architect, is going to explain the current one we're working on.
Hi, everyone. I'm Harsh Desai, Enterprise Architect at Denny's. I joined here over a year ago. My job is to really oversee anything related to Workday, any outside systems that we need to build. My main focus is automating a lot of the manual processes, whether they're within Workday or by using Workday API to build some extend Workday functionality so we can automate a lot of the processes. So with that said, I wanted to cover the use case that we came across earlier this year. As you, all of you are Workday clients, you're subject to corporate audit every year. So this is a use case that applies to many companies. So one of the main things that comes with the audit is you want to make sure none of your users have conflicting abilities to within Workday that can compromise your functions. For example, if you have an access to creating a vendor and also being able to approve the vendor invoices, that's a clear conflict, and audit usually frowns upon that. So what the audit has created is a list of conflicts based on abilities. And one ability can have multiple access points, which are access to business processes as well as domains. So if one ability has multiple BPs and domains that conflict with another ability that has different domains and BPs, then we need to be able to flag the users who are part of both those security groups that have the business processes as well as their domains. So what we also wanted to achieve was a security model where only the auditors can access these conflicting reports of users. So that's why we used Prism and Workday. So the typical process is we get reports for all the users, all their security groups that they belong to. Another data set is created with all the business processes that belong to all the security groups. And the final one is all the domains that belong to all the security groups. We pull these reports using the Workday API, and then outside of Workday, we use an ETL tool to massage the data and then feed it back to Prism. Also within Prism, we've created another data set of conflicts, which has ability 1 and ability 2 as part of the data set. And the final data set is the actual abilities themselves, where they say ability 1, whatever the name of the ability is, and what are all the access points that the ability has access to. So once we have all these data sets within Prism, we join all these tables together, and what we finally end up is a separation of duties data set that shows all the users that have conflicting access to conflicting abilities. And we then publish this data set and expose it as a data set within Workday, and then run a report, which is then available to the corporate audit team to review, and this happens twice a year. So, but the report is available on demand, so we can run it once a month to just be ahead of the audit preparation. And now I'm going to talk about the roadmap. We have several key projects that now we have identified now that we've become a lot more familiar with Prism. As we talked about earlier, we have almost a decade worth of data in Lawson, which is financial data as well as HCM data. So as we plan to sunset Lawson, we will bring all that data into Prism. So it's going to be read-only data, so Prism would be the best place for it to be housed. The next project that we have in mind is we always want to be competitive with our salaries for all the employees and the crew. So we want to make sure that we are matching the market pricing based on the state. So we're going to load all that data within Prism as recurring jobs, bring in that data, and then present a dashboard or a report for the HR to decide, what level of employee and what salary range they might fit into, which will help us stay competitive. And then we have several vendors that send us invoices, and all of those invoices are being processed manually. There's some business rules applied to when the invoices come in. And again, all of that is being done manually. So our goal is to import all the invoice data into Prism, apply the business rules, and then using Workday reports, apply an Excel template, which creates the invoices in a format that we need. And then using an integration built into Workday, we'll be able to add all those invoices automatically to Workday. And then we also have a lot of operational data coming from point-of-sale systems within the restaurants. So we are going to load all of that data within Prism so we can create dashboards and some analytics around that data for finance and as well as the CM teams to look at them and make some business decisions based off of that. And finally, we want to give all the tool set to the financial as well as HCM teams so that once we have built all the key data sets within Prism, they'll be able to create their own discovery boards that can have charts, tables, and be able to present those boards to other teams or make decisions based off of those boards. So those are some of the projects we have in line. And I'm going to finally hand it over to Will. Will?
Great. Yes, thank you. Awesome stuff. Thank you, Jim, Joy, and Harsh. We're really excited to see what you come up with next. Just a reminder for everyone on the line, please submit your questions via the Q&A widget. We'll be answering them shortly. But next, I want to introduce Rich Thayer, Principal Enterprise Architect from Workday, who's going to demo Prism Analytics and show you some use cases for hospitality. Rich?
Well, good morning, good afternoon. I'm Rich Thayer. I'm an enterprise architect for Workday. I've been with Workday about a year. I focus on analytics, and I focus on Prism. So today, I'm going to talk a bit about Prism and some use cases possibly within the hospitality industry. And in this demonstration, I'm going to be a regional manager to begin with. I'm going to be looking, let me make sure I'm sharing. Sorry, it didn't work. And I'm just looking to see my screen. My screen shared, Will? Because I'm not seeing.
Yep, we can see it.
Great, thank you. So today in the analysis we're going to do, I brought in some point of sale information, some store survey information, and some information about gift card usage. And I brought that in to help understand a better picture of how our stores are performing. We blended that with the Workday data around workers, around employees, or even financials, and then are able to, again, show that complete picture. Now, I'm a regional manager, and I have a dashboard for my stores that lets me take a look at how I'm performing at a high level. So the first view I have is year-over-year sales, and I can track where I am in my region compared to some of the other regions on a year-over-year basis. That gives me a trend view of where we are today. Now, I mentioned we brought in some survey information, so I'm very interested in how my stores are sort of performing from a customer perspective. If I look at that, I'll scroll down a little bit. I've got some outstanding, a bunch of those. I've got below average, average, and I've even got some unsatisfactory ratings for a couple of my stores. So I want to look at that, and I'm going to go in and drill in and pull up that list of my stores, and here are all my stores. I can sort my rating in descending order, and I can right away see that my best performing store from a customer satisfaction perspective is store 44. And conversely, if I look at the bottom, I can see store 555 is actually performing probably the least well. So that's a concern I have. And I want to actually take a look at today as I move. I want to have my analysts actually help me understand what's going on. I'll go ahead and drill down or scroll down a little more. And now I have average sales per associate. So we can see how our associates are performing in the perspective of sales. So we have some high performing. Blair is one of them. We have Elaine, who's also a high performer. It looks like actually the late shift seems to be performing the best. I can tell that by looking at my late shift versus my early shift. And because we're in Workday, because we brought this information about sales into Workday, I have access to all the records within Workday. So if I want to click on Elaine, I now can go look at the details on that particular row, or I can actually jump right out or jump right into Elaine's record, his employee record, and see how he's performing. So we're right in his performance record. I can look and see how his performance reviews are tracking, where he fits. He's doing 3s. I can start right here and create his next performance review if I want to do that. But very important, I really want a complete picture of Elaine and how he's doing. And really the best way to do that is see how he's doing on his shifts in the stores. So we've brought in information from the outside. It's not just in reports. We can actually drop it right into his employee record. And now I have a complete picture of how he's performing by looking at his actual sales and his actual performance within that. So again, complete picture. I'll jump out of Elaine. And we're also looking here at ticket sales. Well, store 44 seems to be leading the way on ticket sales. You can see it broken out by dine-in, by pickup, or even delivery services. So we've tracked that. You can also see that store 555 is tracking as our lowest performing store in sales. Now those are the two stores we looked at earlier from a perspective of customer satisfaction. So we can see that that's affecting those stores. Now, to really understand this better, I'm going to turn it over to my analyst, who is Rich. And I'm going to, as that analyst, I'm going to take a look at what we call discovery boards. And it's our data discovery tool for drag and drop analysis, for visual analysis. And I, in that tool, support the general managers who run the stores with analytics. So I'm going to help them understand. I'm going to use those discovery boards to explore and then understand what's going on. And then I can publish these analyses back to the standard Workday reports or dashboards or scorecards for those general managers to consume once I've found something that's of use to them. So the first tab I'm going to go to, you can see tabs across the bottom, and then you can see various views in those tabs. And the first tab I'm going to go to is the survey results, because I want to understand more about those surveys. Well, here's what we saw earlier, that store 44 is our highest performing. store 555 is our lowest performing as far as customer rating, the average customer rating. So that's one of the things I'm going to be looking at more. Also, I have a series of questions that we asked customers in a survey. And I have the results of those questions here on this particular dashboard. And the first one, the most important one, is how loyal are these customers? I've got weekly customers to monthly customers, maybe more less routine customers, and then all the way to first-time customers. So I can track how each of those groups is doing. And up at the top, I have sales. So we're really getting the most sales from our monthly and weekly customers, which makes sense. And then we've got our first-time customers bringing in a good chunk of the business as well. So that helps us understand the profile of our customers. When we brought in those surveys, we had results with them. And one of them, again, is how often do we dine? So you can see here, that's that same graph up above, broken out slightly differently in a more of a pie view. Then we have overall satisfaction. How did people feel about the store? Well, we have lots of fives. I can actually click in. I can show the fives. I'll just move that down. There's the fours. And here's some poor ratings for customer satisfaction. So we're going to be looking into that. Now, rating the food on taste. Again, we have some high marks and some not so high marks. So again, we're seeing what the results of those are and where we might need to focus attention. And the last one is servers, attention, and their availability to us. So we've got some fours that are above average, we've got fives outstanding, and we've got a couple where they just didn't perform well in that area. So to look at the associates a little more, I have a tab for associates. And this is where I can really understand and take that sales information coming in, blend it with the employee information, and be able to tell, what are people selling? And again, that complete picture of their performance. Well, we can see right away Lori is our top performer in sales. Amber is one of our lowest performing people in sales. So this gives us the opportunity to go check with those people and perhaps understand maybe they're just not working full shifts at this point. But we need to understand that in order to help them do a better job. Now, if we look at average customer rating, that's where we put together the customer ratings coming in with those employees, and we can see Abby and Lori have very high ratings. They're almost fives. Over here on the right is a few others, Emma, Edward, and Dajit, who are not performing as well. They've got lower ratings. In fact, we know Emma. We've seen Emma before. Let's click on Emma, and let's jump out to her employee record. So we can, again, go right out from that discovery board into the actual reporting. And at this point, what I might want to do is go to the Talent tab, and let's assign, whoops, that's not the one I wanted. We'll go back to the Talent tab. And I'll add a mentor. So we know Lori's doing a great job, so why don't we add Lori as a mentor for Abby or Emma. So I'm not going to actually do that, but that's how we can take this information and act on it. We talk about analyze, plan, and then execute, and we're actually executing on the issues that we see as we go through. Now we have information about managers, how they're performing, their stores are performing, and then the actual store managers, and then just Workday information about how long people have been with us, months of service. And we can see Amber, for example, this might be one of the reasons her ratings were a little low. She's pretty new. So we can understand, looking at that she might need some training, she might need some help, or maybe a mentor like we did with Emma. And then lastly, what are their actual employee ratings by their manager through the employee rating process? And we can see that who's performing well and who's performing not so well. Next, we can actually look at the stores. And this report's breaking out sales by store, and it gives us information about where the sales are coming from. So for example, we have dine-in, we have quick pickup, we have catering, and we can track where those sales are coming from. Now, if you might remember, that report was actually on this first screen. There it is there. So I'm going to show in a moment how you can just export a report that's in the discovery board, one of these views, right out to a Workday report and drop it into a dashboard. It's a very simple process. Now we can look at, for example, by channel and month and see how we're selling across the months. We can see peaks and valleys in our performance. If we want, we can limit down to a particular store. Here I limited to store 44. These are now all the stores. So here's all of our stores, but we can go in and limit down to a particular store and get a view right on the fly within these discovery boards. Now the last tab is really about gift cards. So we brought in information about gift cards, and we want to understand how those gift cards are being used, what's the impact on our organization, and then what is that actually doing to our sales, and who's selling those gift cards as well. So first of all, we can see the number of gift cards used. The dark green is true. Those are using gift cards, and then the light green is false. So we can see where our gift cards would be kind of a larger percentage of the actual sales. Now, if we look at discounts based on gift cards, so how does that discount our sales? We can see that that's pretty standard. It's across the years. We've used that same amount. If I look at ticket size by store, now if I look at ticket size, I can look at it by, for example, these are our regular tickets without gift cards, but I can change that and look at what's our average ticket with gift cards. So how's that impacting our ticket size? You can see that if I go back to false, our tickets are a little, let's take out true. There we go. Our tickets are a little smaller when there's a gift card. And then lastly, who's selling our gift cards? So I have, in this case, Costco selling the bulk of our gift cards. We also have some going through some department or grocery stores, and then our bulk sales that we sell. So we can see, obviously, that the largest number of gift cards is being sold by, in this case, Costco, and the discount percentage that that's bringing to us. And then we can track gift cards over month. So where are we? And I can go and click on, for example, Costco. We can see how Costco gift card sales are trending across a particular month, or how those are being used. Same thing with Kroger or with our just standard gift cards. So that's helped us understand how we're doing with gift cards. I want to just take a moment and show how I create one of these analyses. So I'm going to go ahead and just say add a visual or add a tab. So I'll add a new tab. And I get a blank palette. I can bring in information that I want to bring in. So I'm going to get it from my tickets and stores data set. That's a data set I've published, which brings together both associate and worker information from Workday, as well as our information coming in from the outside. In fact, you can see here there's gift card information, there's survey information, and there's employee information, all in one data set. And if I want, I can now go and let's actually grab the store record, and I just simply drag it into the x-axis. And immediately I get the count of records for those particular stores. If I want to see what let's get total due, which is my sales, I'll grab that. I'll bring in the sum and drop it in the y-axis. Now I can see what my sum of my sales is. So very quickly, I've got a report that tells me my sales by store. Now, we wanted to know which ones are using gift cards. I have a flag for that. I can just drop that into color. And then I can see what of my sales are coming from gift cards and what are coming from not using gift cards. Now, I've created a report. I can save that report. I'm actually going to call it sales by store. And actually, I'll say HS sales by store. And from there, I can just simply come in, say export it as a report, and I'm going to go ahead and export it and open it up. And for those of you familiar with the Workday report interface, I've now created a report that I can then drop into a dashboard, or just show as an analysis. So it's that quick to create a view, export it to Workday or to a Workday report, and then drop it into a dashboard. So from that, I'm going to finish and turn it back over to Will.
Great, thanks, Rich. Really awesome demo. So the last thing we want to do is do some live Q&A here. So we've been tracking the questions that have been submitted, so we'll just go ahead and answer some of these here. First, for the Denny's team, some questions around personnel. So, how big is the team supporting Workday as a whole versus just your analytics group?
So the 7 people I've mentioned are actually the entire support team for Workday, the whole platform.
Great. And maybe as a related to this, when you think about the skill sets needed and how long did it take you to sort of become self-sufficient on Prism, could you give some insight into that?
So it really didn't take long to become self-sufficient on Prism. We actually started, our very first project was the bonus program, and I think we basically hit every possible option that we needed to learn very quickly. So I'm going to let Joy answer the process she went through with that in learning it.
Well, Harsh and I both have database experience and joins and SQL, so that helped in learning it and picking it up quickly. It was very familiar to those kind of things, but it really is easy to use. It's pretty intuitive.
And we had good help from the Prism team. Mm-hmm. They sort of guided us through the very first bonus process, which helped us learn how to bring in the data, what are the standards to follow, which helped us build more use cases after.
Great. So next question around your implementing these use cases. One of the attendees would like to know about some of the biggest hurdles you faced, and sort of what was your solution?
I think just designing, when we first started with bonus, we were very narrow in our view, and so we brought over, we built data sources with only the HR information we needed for that, and then as we went to our next use case, we thought, well, now we need a little bit more, and so we actually went back and did an HR data source that was broad so that multiple different use cases could kind of pull from the same data sources. And then also the naming convention, so that stuff was easy to find, and the lineage and being able to follow through was very helpful for us.
One of the other problems we ran into was when you run a report, that if I want to bring in a report into Prism as a data set, if it has a multiple instance. So for example, our users belong to a security group. It's a one-to-many relationship, and Prism doesn't allow that. So we had to actually extract all that information from Workday using the API, transform it into a one-to-one relationship, and push it back to Workday. To Prism.
Great. Maybe along those other lines, we had a question here around security. So any best practices around security? Are you securing at the row level, field level, cell level?
So really, the security is currently based on what team members have access to what reports. Mm-hmm. So we're usually the face of the data is really a report. So we can decide who gets access to what report.
And then Workday Security handles the rest of it behind the scenes, just like it does everything else.
Yeah.
Right. So you're pretty much able to apply the Workday, the security you're already using in your Workday reports to any external data you're bringing in as well.
Correct.
Great. So a question around whether or not you are building everything in-house or are you leveraging partners?
Our first implementation, we used someone to make sure it was a Workday implementer that actually helped us get through our first one, taught us what we needed to know, and then since then we've actually been building all of our own in-house.
Great. I noticed some questions around some of the use cases you presented on the roadmap, Harsh, so I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but when you think about bringing in historical data, obviously the legacy system is going to have a different data model than Workday, and so how do you think about doing those transformations?
Well, we're really using Prism as a database, so there should be a one-to-one mapping from one table to the other. It should really look the same. And then, just as you showed us earlier, we could build discovery boards on top of that by joining all these different tables and showing the information. Because this is really going to be for a look back, historical look back.
Very stagnant.
Yeah.
And we'll try to limit the data set that we actually bring back. We're only going to keep the things that we need.
Great. And then there were a couple of questions around the other use case around invoice automation. So have you thought about what the workflow might be there and how it's all going to come together with Prism?
Yes. So there's a little bit of change on the vendor side as well. So we are expecting not just PDFs from vendors, because then we have to do some OCR, and it's not as easy to automate. So we do expect the invoices to come in as PDFs as well as in an Excel sheet or an EDI interface. That helps us do some transformations around the data, put them into Prism as a data source, then apply our rules on top of it, because we need to distribute some of the charges coming from the vendors across different restaurants. So all of those rules have to be applied within Prism. And then using a Workday report, you can actually attach an Excel template to how you want the final data set to be transformed. And then that template is going to be the same for across different vendors, because the output should be the same regardless of what vendor is coming in. But based on the vendor, there'll be different rules applied within Prism.
Great. So before we close here, I just want to take a moment for the Denny's team. If you had one or two best practice suggestions for everyone on the line here, what would those be?
So from a management standpoint, I would say that obviously we chose Prism because we wanted the native data, the core data, the system of record data. We wanted a tool that actually spoke to it with all its native security in place. So that's why we chose Prism, and I would highly recommend that at least for your first use case, making sure that you're using an implementer that is very experienced and can sort of get you started down the right path, because we feel like that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten with it. Is we were on the right path, and now we're able to take that knowledge that Joy and Harsh learned from that first process, and we've got all kinds of business cases coming up. Joy, do you have anything in addition?
No, I do think that Workday coming in and helping us with our first use case was beneficial, because he taught us that best practices, like you always build a DDS instead of a BDS. He just taught us certain things that were just the rule of thumb to be smart in doing. And I also think that naming your stuff appropriately where you can find them is very helpful, and then thinking big picture, because I think take your time and lay it all out to make sure you understand what all you're going to need before you get started.
Yes, so as Joy mentioned, there's a standardized way of how we need to build data on top of each other, so we can slowly transform data from one data set to the other while retaining all the raw data underneath and applying transformation rules as we move up the chain. And there's a lineage within Prism that will show you how all of these data sets are tied together. When you actually join in certain data sets and form yet another data set, it will show you the whole lineage. So that's something to keep in mind. I also see another question here about automatically feeding data into Prism. So that's another thing we're using. So we can use SFTP as one of the channels, or you can use Workday reports as a channel that will automatically feed data as it updates into Prism. So those are some of the things to keep in mind if you have fresh data coming in. So those are some of the things that we've learned would be helpful to others.
Great. Well, that concludes this webinar. I just want to say thank you, Jim, Joy, and Harsh for your participation and for sharing your Prism Analytics story. Very exciting. We can't wait to see what you come up with next. For those on the line, I just want to promote some of our upcoming Looking Forward with Workday webinars on July 16th. You can hear about Christiana Care's journey to modernize finance on July 23rd. The topic will be keeping your strategic workforce plans more in tune with the business. And on August 6th, another planning focused webinar entitled Getting Ready for Budget Season. So with that, our webinar is concluded. Please reach out to your account executive with any questions, and we'll be happy to follow up. Have a great day.